Well, hello. It's me again, Dawn Flood with Student Leadership Services, or a lot of you know me as Mrs. Flood as well. And I'm back today to talk to you about relationships and how we build them and why we build them. On our last video, we talked about how to overcome shyness and be more social by engaging conversations with people. And one of the reasons we socialize and have conversations with others is because we want to build relationships. See, relationships come in many forms. They can be with friends, parents, coaches, siblings, teachers, other family members, etc. Basically, we have relationships with all types of people, even strangers, people we run into, people we interact with. We build a relationship with them. We may not be close to them, or it may be a one-time thing, but it's still a relationship that leaves a mark on our lives. But not only do we have relationships with people, but we also have relationships with things. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, how can you have relationships with things? Well, we do. So, for example, I know many of you have relationships with this, right? Your phone. You have relationships with your phone. We have relationships with shoes, cars, food, for sure. Definitely have relationships with food. So basically anything we have relationships with. So whenever we have relationships, whether it's with people or even our pets or other things, we have those relationships because we have an attraction to them. See, relationships are about attraction. We have attraction to things that we like. For example, shoes, right? We are attracted to buy a pair of shoes because they look cool or it's the latest style. We also might be attracted to buy those shoes because they're comfortable, they feel good on our feet, okay? So when it comes to attraction, and which draws us to relationships with peoples and things, that attraction comes in two forms, physical attraction and non-physical attraction. And we have both of those when we build relationships with peoples and things. So, for example, okay, some things that I like, that I'm attracted to, is hats, okay? I love hats, so I wear baseball hats all the time. You've probably seen me in hats before. And I'm physically attracted to a hat because, one, I like what it looks like, or I might like the team, go Tigers. I might be non-physically attracted to it because of how it fits nicely on my head, okay, and how I look in it. All right. Here's another hat. Okay, so I like all kinds of hats. All right, I have fishing hats too. This is a beach hat. But again, I'm physically attracted to it because for this one I like the colors. You know what I look like when it's on. Okay, so I'm physically attracted to all different types of things. Books is another one, okay? Now, when I look for a book that I want to read, okay, the first physical attraction is the title, okay? It pops out at me. The second would be, non-physically, would be perhaps the author. I like how she writes. That would be a non-physical thing. So we have attraction to many different things, okay? Now, we also have attraction to people, right? So physical attraction to people. If you remember, I showed a picture of Justin Timberlake last week when we were talking about shyness because he's shy. But physical attraction is somebody might be physically attracted to him because he's good looking. Okay, they might be non-physically attracted to him because of his sense of humor. All right, because sense of humor is non-physical. His personality is non-physical. So there's a lot of things that contribute to attraction, physical and non-physical. So now that I gave you a couple examples of the difference between physical and non-physical attractions, this is what I want you to do. I want you to write down one physical thing and one non-physical thing that attracts you to a person. So think about a relationship that you have. It could be your best friend. It could be your boyfriend, your girlfriend. It could be a relationship you have with a mentor or a role model. It could even be your brother and sister, okay? But I want you to think about a relationship that you have and that you cherish. And I want you to write down one physical thing and one non-physical thing that attracts you to them. And now remember, school appropriate, because we're doing this so that we learn how to do this. And so go ahead and write down some examples, and I'll see you in a minute. All right, so you got it? Cool. So hopefully you wrote down at least one for each category, physical and non-physical attraction, that you have for that person you have a relationship with that you picked. Now what I want you to do is I want you to do the same thing for a thing that you have. What's your favorite thing that you feel you're really connected to, that you have a relationship with? It may be a book, it may be a phone, maybe shoes, maybe food. I don't know what you is really important to you in terms of things. So I want you to take a minute and I want you to do the same thing that you did for the person. I want you to do that for a thing. Okay, so pick that thing that you really cherish, and I want you to write down one physical attraction that you have towards it. So perhaps maybe if it's a shirt, it looks good on you, and one non-physical, maybe if it makes you feel comfortable. So go ahead, pick that item, and then write down a physical and non-physical attraction that you have to that, and I'll see you in a minute. All right, so you may have found the thing a little more harder. I don't know, maybe it was easier, of what attracts you to that, to build that relationship. I don't know, it might have been easier for you to pick the person or the item. I'm not sure. But I bet before now that you didn't think about having a relationship or an attraction to things like your phone or a book or a favorite shirt or food, but we do. Attraction is the number one thing that makes us spend money. If you have ever watched the show Shark Tank, you would see that the people are trying to sell their idea or their item to the sharks by presenting what is physically and non-physically attractive about their item or idea. The sharks, who are the judges, they will invest in things that they are attracted to. Let's look more at the relationships we have with people. To strengthen our relationships, one thing we do is we hang out with people, right? We hang out with them, we do fun things, we have things in common. That's one way we strengthen relationships. Now, I'm pretty sure we have all been in a position before where we wanted to ask someone to hang out with us. I know I have. And do something, whether it was, go to the movies, go ice skating. And we might have been afraid of what they might say, or we might have even been worried about how we would approach them. I know I have been like that before, especially if it's somebody that I don't know very well, but I would like to get to know, or I see them as a potential friend. I might get nervous to do that because I'm not quite sure what's going to happen. So like anything in our lives, if we want to get comfortable at doing something, we have to practice, because life is all about practicing until you get comfortable. So we're going to do just that. We're going to practice how to appropriately approach someone to hang out with you, and how to respond when they're unable to, okay? And we're going to do that by learning and practicing techniques for arranging social activities. And when you do that, you can feel more confident. The first thing we need to do is recognize, before we ask someone to hang out with us, we need to recognize what it is we like to do for fun, okay? And what that is that we perhaps would have in common with that person so that they would want to do it with us, okay? So what I want you to do right now is I want you to take a minute, pause the video, and I want you to write down 5 things that you like to do for fun. And it can be anything. It can be from, playing on your Xbox. It could be watching movies, binging on Netflix. It could be go exercising, bike rides, whatever. But make a list of 5 of your top things that you like to do with other people. So go ahead and do that, and I'll be with you in a minute. Got your 5 things? Awesome. Cool. So once you have some things in mind that you're ready to invite someone to social activities, you first have the things that you want to do, and you have your list, so you have a couple things. And so now you're ready. You're ready to put yourself out there, okay, to use those conversation skills that we learned before in our communication skills to approach someone to say, hey, you want to hang out, you want to do something, okay? So when it comes to that, there are some do's and don'ts for inviting someone to hang out with you or to do a social activity with you. All right. So here's the do's. All right. Have something definite in mind. All right. So an example would be, hey, would you like to go to the movies on Saturday? Okay. So you have something definite in your mind. All right. What you don't do is you don't be vague. You don't say, do you want to do something sometime? That's very vague. Okay. You have to have something in mind. Second thing, all right, this is do this. Have an alternative ready to allow the other person some freedom of choice. So for example, you could say something like, well, if you don't want to go to the movies, we were also thinking of maybe going to the park if it's a nice day. So you want to give them some alternatives in case the first choice didn't really connect with their interest. What you don't want to do is you don't want to just give up. If your first idea doesn't work, okay? You don't want to be like, oh, so you can't go to the movies? All right, I'll see you later. Don't do that, okay? Don't do that. Another thing you want to do is you want to get to the point, okay? You want to get to the point. Don't lollygag. Don't, draw it out. Just get to the point. An example would be like, would you like to go play basketball Friday after school? So a specific activity, a day, and a time, all right? What you don't want to do is you don't want to be around the bush. You don't want to be like, how are you? Just get to the point. Ask them what it is that you want to ask them, okay? And then the final thing that you want to do is be positive, okay? Be positive. And you could do that by, an example would be, hey, I know you like ice cream as much as I do. Do you want to go to Dairy Queen on Sunday around 1? So again, you're connecting with them, letting them know, I know you like something, I do too, okay? Let's go do it. That's a positive note. What you don't want to do is you don't want to sound negative. You don't want to say, well, you probably already have plans, but would you like to go out on Saturday? All right, that's a negative approach. Be positive, that you're confident that they will want to hang out with you, okay? Now, you can be on both ends, all right? We just talked about how we can approach someone if we want to hang out with them, okay? But on the other side, someone may invite you to a social activity. And so now we got to look at how are we going to respond, okay? How are we going to respond? Because sometimes we can't go, okay? So some tips for responding if you can go though, all right? So you can go. So one, you say yes and be enthusiastic. Sure, I'd like to go play basketball. That sounds fun, okay? So again, that positive note. Yeah, let's go play basketball. That sounds fun. Now, what happens if you can't go? All right, so here's some things that you can respond appropriately if you can't go, okay? Because again, relationships is about conversations and communication. But sometimes either, that may not interest us, or maybe we really can't go because our schedule doesn't allow it. So if you can't go, you can say things like this. Say that we'd like to, okay, but you can't. So an example would be, you know what, I would really like to go to the park and have some ice cream, but I just can't. I got so much that I have to do. Another example, I can't go Friday because I have to babysit, but how about we go another day? So do a suggestion, okay? Now, that's if you can't go. Sometimes you're going to find yourself, you just don't want to go, right? Okay? So when you don't want to go, here's really important. Whatever you do, don't lead someone on, okay? If you don't want to do something, be honest, but be polite. Because if you lead them on thinking that you're their friend, okay, it's very hurtful. So be honest, but be polite, because we know that things don't always match, okay? So remember that. Be honest, be polite, put yourself out there, but don't lead people on if you don't want to have that relationship with them. All right, so now what I want you to do is I want you to pause the video and I want you to write down how you would go about asking someone to hang out with you using the do's, okay? So remember, the do's were have something definite in mind, have an alternative ready to allow the other person some freedom of choice, get to the point of what you want, but be positive. So I want you to write down how you go about asking someone to hang out with you. using those do's. I'll see you in a minute. Welcome back. All right, so to recap what we talked about today. All right, so we talked about how when we have relationships not only with the people in our lives, but also with things. And how we go about building relationships is we have an attraction to those people or things. And we have the attraction physically by, what it looks like, and non-physically about how it makes us feel, comfortability, personality, sense of humor, stuff like that. So physical and non-physical attraction, okay? And then we talked about how do we approach somebody and ask them to hang out with us, okay? When we're not quite sure what to say or how they'll respond, but we want to continue to build that relationship. So we talked about the do's and don'ts when asking somebody to hang out with you, all right? So to wrap this all up, developing relationships, especially with people, takes practice and it takes time. The first step to developing a healthy relationship is to be comfortable and confident in yourself. And I know it takes practice, okay? Which is why we spend time together learning these skills, and I give you activities so that you can practice that. And part of that is we need to practice our communication skills so that we can overcome our shyness, because we all have a sense to sometimes stick to ourselves when we're not quite sure how someone else will respond to us. So once we can practice those things and we get comfortable and confident with ourselves, then we're on our way, okay? Then we're on our way to building those relationships, because relationships are very important to us. So thank you for tuning in with me today and doing my activities and participating. So glad to have you, and I look forward to hanging out with you next time. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.